7 months pregnant, I stood in the empty doorway of what used to be our home, clutching my swollen belly as I read the note my husband had left on the kitchen counter. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I'm sorry." No explanation, no forwarding address, just those 8 words that shattered my entire world. The moving truck had already taken his things while I was at my doctor's appointment, and now I was completely alone, carrying our unborn daughter with nowhere to turn. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. We'd been married for 5 years and I thought we were building something beautiful together. Sure, money had been tight since I'd lost my job 3 months into the pregnancy due to severe morning sickness, but I never imagined David would just leave. Not like this. Not when I needed him most. The first few days after he disappeared, I kept expecting him to come back. I'd wake up in our bed, reach over to his side and feel that crushing emptiness all over again. I called his phone dozens of times, but it went straight to voicemail. I even drove to his office, only to be told by his secretary that he'd resigned and moved to another state. Another state. He'd planned this. Within 2 weeks, the eviction notice came. Without David's income, I couldn't make rent. I'd already spent what little savings we had on baby supplies and prenatal care. My pregnancy had been classified as high risk due to gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, requiring frequent specialist visits that our insurance barely covered. Each appointment was another bill I couldn't afford, another reminder of how alone I was in this. My family lived 3 states away and we'd grown distant over the years. My parents had never really approved of David, and now I was too ashamed to call them and admit they'd been right. I had one close friend, Michelle, but she was struggling with her own divorce and could barely keep her head above water. I couldn't burden her with my problems too. The day I got kicked out of our apartment, I sat in my car in the parking lot, crying until I couldn't breathe properly. My baby kicked frantically inside me as if she could sense my panic. I had $127 in my bank account, a car that needed repairs I couldn't afford, and nowhere to go. I drove to a women's shelter, but they were full. The next 3 shelters I tried were also at capacity. That night, I slept in my car behind a 24-hour diner, using my winter coat as a blanket. I was terrified someone would call the police, terrified of what sleeping in a cramped car was doing to my baby, terrified of everything. The baby barely moved that night and I convinced myself I was killing her with my stress and poor decisions. For 3 weeks I lived like this. Showering at truck stops, eating dollar menu items when I could afford them, spending nights in my car or when I was lucky on Michelle's couch. But even that couldn't last. Her landlord threatened eviction if I didn't leave. I was 7.5 months pregnant and I felt like I was slowly dying from the inside out. The depression was suffocating. Some days I couldn't get out of the car. I'd just sit there, hand on my belly, apologizing to my unborn daughter for being such a failure as a mother before she was even born. I started having thoughts I'd never had before. Dark thoughts about whether she'd be better off without me, whether I was just going to ruin her life the way I'd ruined my own. Then came the night that changed everything. I was parked behind a grocery store trying to sleep despite the cramping in my legs and back when I felt something wrong. Really wrong. Sharp pains shot through my abdomen and I felt a warm wetness between my legs. In the dim light of the street lamp, I saw blood on my pants. Lots of blood. I drove myself to the emergency room, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I stumbled through the automatic doors and the last thing I remember clearly was telling the nurse, "Something's wrong with my baby," before collapsing on the floor. I woke up in a hospital bed, monitors beeping around me with N4 in my arm and a fetal heart monitor strapped to my belly. A doctor was standing beside me and for a terrifying moment, I was sure she was going to tell me I'd lost the baby. Dad, she smiled. "Your daughter is fine," she said. "You had a placental abruption but we caught it in time. However, we're going to need to keep you here for the next few weeks until delivery. Your stress levels and malnutrition nearly caused a much more serious situation." I started crying, from relief, from exhaustion, from the overwhelming fear of what came next. "I don't have insurance," I whispered. "I can't pay for this." That's when the social worker Elena walked into the room. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. "Don't worry about that right now," she said, pulling up a chair. "Let's talk about what you need." I told her everything. About David leaving, about living in my car, about feeling like I was failing my baby before she was even born. Elena listened without judgment, taking notes and nodding. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Sarah, she said finally, I've been doing this job for 25 years and I want you to know something. You're not alone and this is not the end of your story. Over the next few days, Elena worked what seemed like miracles. She connected me with emergency housing assistance, helped me apply for Medicaid to cover my medical bills, and enrolled me in WIC for nutritional support. She found me a spot in a transitional housing program specifically for pregnant women and new mothers. For the first time in months I had hope. But the real surprise came on a Thursday afternoon. Elena walked into my room with a woman I'd never seen before. Tall, elegant, probably in her 50s with silver hair and a warm smile. Sarah, Elena said, this is Margaret Chin. She'd like to talk with you. Margaret sat down and took my hand. I heard about your situation through Elena, she said. I lost my own daughter in a car accident 5 years ago. She was pregnant at the time, would have been my first grandchild. Her voice caught slightly. I've been looking for ways to honor her memory and I'd like to help you if you'll let me. What happened next still feels like a dream. Margaret owned a property management company and had a small apartment that she offered me rent-free for the first 6 months, with an affordable rate after that. She also offered me a part-time job doing administrative work that I could start after my maternity leave, with flexible hours and the option to bring the baby with me. Why? I asked, tears streaming down my face. Why would you do this for a stranger? Margaret squeezed my hand. Because my daughter would have wanted me to. And because every mother deserves a chance to succeed. Emma Rose was born 3 weeks later on a sunny Tuesday morning. 6 pounds 2 ounces of pure perfection. When they placed her on my chest and she looked up at me with those dark blue eyes, I knew that everything I'd been through had led to this moment. She was worth every sleepless night in the car, every tear I'd cried, every moment I'd felt broken. Margaret was there that day and she cried almost as much as I did when Emma was born. She'd become like a mother to me during those final weeks of pregnancy, bringing me books and baby clothes, sitting with me during long afternoons, sharing stories about her daughter. The first night home with Emma in our little apartment was magical. It wasn't fancy, just a small one-bedroom with basic furniture. But it was ours. Safe, warm, filled with love. I sat in the rocking chair Margaret had bought us, feeding Emma and looking around at our new beginning. Starting work when Emma was 3 months old was challenging, but Margaret made it possible. She'd converted a small office into a nursery, and Emma would sleep in her bassinet while I answered phones and managed files. The other employees became like aunts to her, taking turns holding her when she was fussy and celebrating every milestone. 6 months after Emma was born, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. It was from David, postmarked from California. He wrote that he was sorry that he'd been scared and handled everything wrong, and that he wanted to meet his daughter. I read the letter 3 times then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have that conversation, but not yet. Emma and I were building something beautiful, just the 2 of us, and I wasn't ready to risk disrupting that peace. A year later, I'd saved enough money to buy Emma her first real bed and was enrolled in online classes to finish my degree. Margaret had become Grandma Maggie, and Elena still checked in on us regularly. I joined a single mother support group where I met women who became some of my closest friends. We helped each other through teething nights and toddler tantrums, celebrated first words and first steps together. Emma is 3 now and she's the light of my world. She's smart, funny, and incredibly loving. She calls Margaret Grandma Maggie, and has never known a world where she wasn't deeply loved and wanted. Sometimes I look at her playing in our little living room and I can hardly believe this is our life. Last month I got a promotion at work and we moved into a bigger apartment with a yard where Emma can play. I'm finishing my degree in social work, inspired by Elena's example. I want to be that person for someone else. The one who shows up when everything seems hopeless and helps them see that their story isn't over. The most beautiful part? I'm not bitter anymore. Yes, David's abandonment nearly destroyed me, and yes, those months were the darkest of my life. But they also showed me strength I never knew I had. They brought Margaret and Elena into our lives, along with so many other people who became our chosen family. Sometimes Emma asks about her daddy and I tell her the truth in age-appropriate ways. Daddy wasn't ready to be a parent, I say, but that doesn't mean you're not loved. Look at all the people who love you. And she does. Grandma Maggie, Elena, our friends from the support group, our neighbors who babysit when I have late classes. I'm not the same woman who stood in that empty doorway, broken and alone. I'm stronger, more grateful, more aware of my own resilience. Most importantly, I'm Emma's mom, and that's the most important job I'll ever have. To anyone going through something similar right now, whether it's abandonment, poverty, feeling completely alone while carrying a child, please know this: your story is not over. That baby you're carrying? They're not a burden or a mistake. They might just be the catalyst for the most beautiful chapter of your life. It's hard. Yes, there will be nights when you cry yourself to sleep wondering how you'll make it through. But there are people out there ready to help, ready to be part of your village. Elena and Margaret proved that to me. They showed me that sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our worst disasters. Your child needs you exactly as you are, with all your fears and imperfections. They need your love, your strength, your determination to keep going even when everything seems impossible. And you have more of all three than you realize. Don't give up. Your miracle might be just around the corner, wearing the face of a kind social worker, a generous stranger, or simply your own inner strength that you haven't discovered yet. Emma and I are living proof that sometimes the best families are the ones we build ourselves, with love, determination, and the help of people who choose to care. Your happy ending is out there, waiting for you to be brave enough to reach for it. If this story resonated with you, or if you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Your story matters, and sharing it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Please hit the like button if this touched your heart, and consider subscribing for more real-life stories of hope and resilience. Remember, you're stronger than you know, and you're never truly alone.